Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Security Shorts with Scott. Thanks for joining. Super excited about our guest today. We're going to take a very different approach from some of the technical deep dives that we often do to focus on a different area of the security business. And with me, please welcome Homaira Akbari. Homaira, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
For our listeners out there, I want to give a little bit of background because you've had such an interesting career. First, and I don't think many people know this, you have a PhD in high energy physics, not something that I personally know many people that have a PhD in. You've had a business career running many businesses, owning many P&Ls. You do a lot of advisory work for CEOs of major corporations, and I believe you currently sit on two boards, including a really impressive and prestigious bank in Spain, Banco Santander, that works in Europe and in Latin America. So thanks for joining today.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, Homaira, one of the great things about what's going on in your personal life or business life is you've recently written a book called the Cyber Savvy Boardroom. And I love the book. I love the phrase because the engagement with boards when it comes to cybersecurity has changed so much over the last, even 5 years. But there's still a lot happening at the board level. And so, again, thanks for coming on because I think this is such a great topic. And I want to sort of start with, in your view, what do you think is a key sort of overarching point board members should be thinking about when it comes to security and being cyber savvy as it relates to being a board member?
Well, I mean, what I'd like to really start with or emphasize the fact that what you said, cybersecurity has become an imperative, a strategic issue at the board level. I think generally board members understand that or they believe in that, but what they don't know is why. And there's really three parts to it. One is obviously cybersecurity is increasing dramatically. And that's, not just the frequency is increasing, but damage per case, whether it's financial or non-financial. But the thing that is the most important is, and that's really the key, cybersecurity used to be that only certain sectors like financial sectors or healthcare were subject to cybersecurity because they had very important data, because it used to be one of the big things is you steal data and you sell it on the dark web. Well, till ransomware came around. Once ransomware came around, which is you can steal data or you basically do, you disrupt a business by encrypting their data, not really stealing it. Then the companies, the hackers or the bad guys can ask for a lot of money. So once the business continuity risk has become the most important risk, and once that has happened since about 3-4 years ago with ransomware sort of became a la mode, then no industry, whether you're a municipality, whether you're a library, whether you're a not-for-profit, is really immune to cybersecurity. That's very important for board members to understand. That's the whole group of why cybersecurity sort of is growing. But then second part is cybersecurity is converging with many areas. For example, fraud. And in last Monday, I believe it was last Monday, in Wall Street Journal, there was a very interesting half-a-pager article around how freights are getting rerouted, or there's fraud, what we call online and offline fraud, happening in freight, in broker freight. And it's very interesting because in logistics firms have been seeing that already since early 2023, but now finally it made it to Wall Street Journal article. So the concept here is there are a lot of things which are merging with cybersecurity. Fraud is one, privacy is another one, physical security is another one. For banks and for many other companies, what's called KYC, know your customer, or AML, anti-money laundering. So that's another part. That's second section. The third one is regulatory pressures. everywhere around the world now, they have either had regulatory sort of imposition of cybersecurity, or they are now making it harder, bigger penalties. So we had GDPR, for example, which is data protection laws in Europe, and the penalties are quite as strong as 4% of your total revenue worldwide, which is a lot for big companies. But now you have SEC last year, and the law went into effect mid-December of 2023, has required disclosure of any incident which is considered material breach within 4 business days. So when these regulatory pressures have come with penalty, board members have they're part of it effectively,
Right.
because and that's really what has made a big difference in boardrooms.
Makes sense. The when I talk to boards, they are definitely more aware of the fact that there are more aspects of cybersecurity that impact the business. Where 4 or 5 years ago is maybe more of an attitude of we want to, obviously it's important, but I think you've just laid out some really key pieces around the fact that regulatory components, breach notification components that drive the board to recognize that this isn't something that we want to do, it's something that they must do. And I think that really pivots into the second component, because one of the things I hear a lot from colleagues is, do you think boards care about cybersecurity? And for me anyway, I have seen a big change in boards when it comes to supporting cybersecurity initiatives over the last few years. But some people say that the boards are still more bottom line driven, and that expense that comes with cybersecurity is maybe not something they want to do. I would love to get your opinion on that. Are you seeing I won't set it up. What's your sort of view on the board's support for cybersecurity initiatives today relative to maybe in the past?
Well, so, like everything else, we have sort of dichotomy. Those best-in-class boards, which are best-in-class usually in everything, they're also very, very best-in-class in cybersecurity and understand the value of having the right defense ecosystem. And then you have these other boards where exactly what you said, and I know live examples of that, where the top people, this being CEO or executive chairman, cares about bottom line and doesn't care about the investment. So it's really investment. Like, you don't invest in tech, you don't invest in R&D, you don't invest in cybersecurity. So that's what discerns the two. But for those who do care, and even for those who don't care, how do boards go about it? Look, cybersecurity still remains abstract. Even though every day when you open, no matter what newspaper and what news media, there's always something about cybersecurity, just like there's always something about AI these days. But it's hard for board members to understand it because it's still abstract. So this is why, together with my co-author, we wrote the book, the Cyber Savvy Boardroom, is really to give a mental model to board members to internalize, and that's the key word. Cybersecurity has to become internalized to board members, just like financial accounting is. Like, even if you're not a financial expert, you understand what goodwill means, and that you have to write it off, and that when you have impairment of your goodwill, that's not good. So you understand the concepts. Today, we're still not there with board members for cybersecurity. So in the book, we created a mental model which has 4 frameworks. First, we define the assets of an enterprise. Then we define why they get attacked. What's the benefit, what benefits hackers get by attacking those assets. Then we define how for each asset you can protect them. And the defense ecosystem in this case is not just protecting, as you know quite well, it's also about identifying a breach and then containing it and then remediating it. And that's board members understand. And the last part, which really board members are dying to get more and more of, is the metrics. A set of metrics to tell them how they could say whether their companies are mature and how much they should push for their investment in cybersecurity, whether it's human resources or just buying new vendors. But one of the things that we advice when I work with different boards or companies, depending on their size, they can really benefit from what's called managed services, and really have this whole group of, including SolCyber, group of companies, which now can do A to Z of cybersecurity for you. And I find that extremely interesting. And many boards that I work with understand the value of it, but then depending on your size, obviously.
Of course. There's two or three things in there that I loved. One of the best parts about the book is the framework that's built is very easy to understand. I believe even if you're a non-security person. And two, it's very digestible. It's I believe, what, 80 pages? It's not a very large book. And so I thought it was very condensed and a dense quality, easy to really get your head around book. And I was like, sometimes you get listen, board members, generally speaking, are very smart. They have got no problem reading a 300-page book or 600-page book. But sometimes that ability to really get the key points across very quickly is actually quite difficult. And I thought you all did a fantastic job. And to the point around managed services and vendors, what do you think is the key for vendors, whether or not that's services or product, on how to engage with the board? In my personal experience, anytime I've engaged with the board, we've almost always, been able to support them and get a deal and really help them. But a lot of times it's difficult to engage with the board. So what would you recommend to vendors and service providers on how to maybe get to the board and engage with the board?
So recall that, board members, again, on frequently, as you said yourself, are not technical. And even if they are, they may not be a cybersecurity expert or understand the technicality of cybersecurity. So board members certainly cannot pick the vendors, but it is interesting and good for board members to know vendors, but the approach of vendors to board members should be risk-based approach. I.e., talk to the board member, because that is the role board member has. Define the appetite of the risk appetite for the company, which was, earlier I said investments. At the end of the time is like, how much risk can I accept? And then, the fact that in cybersecurity, as we said earlier, you can 100% protect. Therefore, you have to have detect and contain and recover and remediate and recover. So I think the way vendors should approach board members, should they get that audience, is risk-based. Here are the risks, and we define in the book 7 risks, and we talk about it's a business continuity risk. For us is the most important risk, which really you cannot get away, which is what ransomware have figured out as well, that is the risk. After that is data risk, because your data can be, for example, strategic data, and your IP can be stolen, and that maybe there's no immediate impact on your business continuity, but it has impacted strategically on you. But so we define 7 risks, and I think that if vendors approach the board members that they get audience for with that, and talk about how that whole solution puzzle and their solution fits in that to mitigate those risks, or to lessen them to the extent possible, as much as possible.
I love that. I know for me, when I get approached, anytime somebody can fit it into a framework, that makes it easier for me to see the gaps. Because oftentimes we run gap assessments across our businesses, but maybe there's gaps that we don't know about or we haven't been uncovered, and they can say, are you doing these 7 things? And we can go through and say, yeah, maybe 1 and 2 pretty well, or these are the 7 risks, but we're not really well protected against these other 3 or 4. It starts clarifying the need inside of the customer. So I think it's a great point. Homaira, listen, I really appreciate the time. What are your final thoughts? What should the audience take away from when it comes to engaging with the board or board members that are trying to become cyber savvy?
I think one of the things that audience, or if they were their board members, should remember is the fact that cybersecurity is very different than many other aspects of a business. You cannot 100% be secure, and that's like fundamental, because I've had CEOs of top 50 companies, Fortune 50 companies, who've asked me, what is it? How can the US government cannot simply protect us? And in reality, it's three reasons. One is technical debt or technology debt. I mean, every company, no matter who, had, they have legacy technology. Even if your company was created 50 years ago, what you adopted 50 years ago is today legacy. So you have legacy technology, and many of these technologies, when they were invented, they did not have any cybersecurity in mind, because still 50, 70 years ago, cybersecurity was not important. Secondly is, as digital transformation and just generally adopting technology like AI is very important, and you have to do it. But as you do that, and then unintended uses of these new innovations and technologies somehow, and integration of them to the legacy systems, create more vulnerabilities. And all these vulnerabilities are not known 100%. Some of them maybe, but that's why we call them, we have zero-day vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. And finally, one thing that cybersecurity has that no other field has is you have bad guys sitting across the table. You have adversaries, which is just like military. You have adversaries that are sitting across the table, and guess what? Frequently, they're smarter than you are, whether you like it or not. And that's all they do. They're trying to find vulnerabilities in you. Therefore, I think that both vendors should always remember to communicate this fact to board members or to their clients, and then board members should understand that, and which is why we always emphasize defense ecosystem versus protection. Protection is just one part of it, but really the whole totality of that ecosystem in order to defend your organization is very important.
Myra, I need to have you just come and talk to every one of my customers. We constantly tell them, like, a point solution does not get you a defensive capability when it comes to cybersecurity. It's a multi-step process, around obviously knowing if something bad's happening, and then understanding what's happening, and then being able to contain it, or as you like to say, and then recover from it and respond to it. And so there's a lot of different steps in there, and having that understanding is something that I appreciate you putting out to the audience. Homaira, thank you for joining. Before we wrap, where can folks find you, and where can they find your book?
Just feel free to mention this podcast and request for a connection on LinkedIn. But you can also send me an email at homaira@acknowledge.us, but without C. No, it's AK knowledge, or A knowledge if you like. In terms of the book, it's available on Amazon, both in form of digital as well as print, but also you can get free PDF type or digital type if you just Google the book, it should come up under the company that sponsored the book, which is metascope.com.
Perfect. So for all the board members out there, I highly recommend the book. Seriously, it's great. Very easy read, packed with knowledge, and gives some excellent frameworks with which to start thinking about cybersecurity. And with that, Homaira, thanks again for joining. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in to Security Shorts with Scott. Hopefully you found this very, very interesting and useful, and look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.